Well, good evening. Again, welcome. And I trust that you had, as this weekend closes out, a good Thanksgiving, although for many of us, a very different one. I can honestly say, Zooming with my niece and my sister in California was better than the usual phone call that we try to make. So I guess there are some blessings in the midst of this pandemic. It was because of this pandemic that I noticed that in conversations that I would have with my brother priests, like we would occasionally Zoom a deanery meeting. I was attending the priest council meeting, again by Zoom. And even among our staff members, we were asking similar questions. How are we going to help our people prepare for Christmas, given the situation we find ourselves in? And even at the earliest stages, they were only talking about the surge coming. Now it's fully arrived. The bishop was remarking how Christmas is such a wonderful time for inviting people to come to the parish and to be part of the community in prayer for that special night. And we want to do that. But we're cognizant of limited space, limited health situations, and the like. So how could we possibly make this a time where the darkness doesn't overcome us, but that our hearts can be set on the light that is coming, the Christ? Well, one of the things we set upon here at Holy Spirit was to do this journey through Advent and Lent that we've been talking about. And we still have those cards or CDs if you want. By the way, our guests, if you'd like to take one of those and join with us in prayer, you can. It's an opportunity for a reflection with Father Dave Pravanka of the Wild Goose Ministry, and a companion, the Vigil Project, who have composed music to coincide with his reflections, to give us an opportunity to be together with one another, at least in prayer, in reflection, and in the growth of coming together as a community, at least within our hearts, to embrace and welcome the Christ. Isaiah today speaks to the people about what they already know. They had turned away from God. That's why they found themselves in such distress. But he reminds them of something important, something valuable for us as we make this journey. We are like the pot in the hands of the potter. So our God always has his hand with and on us to shape our lives, and on occasion to reshape it if it so needs. But we can trust in the God who provides for what we need, the God who understands where we are, the God who seeks to enter into our lives. St. Paul then takes that idea a bit further. He gives thanks to his fellow Christians for remaining faithful to God and to the teachings that have been handed on to them. And he gives praise and thanksgiving to God for them. It inspires Paul to endure the sufferings and the persecutions that he undergoes, and even the setbacks, because other communities have fallen either to the wayside or gotten confused, and Paul has to write even more vigorously for them. But here, Paul gives thanks and asks them to recognize that Christ is already in their midst. And that's what we're doing this Advent, is recognizing Christ is in our midst. What we're working towards is welcoming him more deeply, allowing our lives to be drawn more intimately into his heart, to allow the light that he continues to pour forth on us to penetrate more deeply within the darkness of our lives. So much so that as we hear Mark tell the story about Jesus tonight, the key word is watch. He begins with it, be watchful. Puts it in the middle, the gatekeeper is on the watch. And as if we may not have gotten the idea of what we should be doing, he ends his gospel today with, what I say to you, I say to all, watch. Now the key here is to understand that watch is not a passive verb. It's an active verb. It is an opportunity to engage in the watchfulness. It's an opportunity to recognize the movement of God already in our midst. To be not caught off guard. So it's not just sitting around and waiting and watching to see what might happen. It is about actively getting involved. And here we come back to our journey. To actively and be involved in prayer. To allow our minds to grow more deeply into the awareness of what this Christmas season means by a little deeper reflection. To allow the music settings that are being provided for us to settle our hearts and our souls and our minds to be more aware of the movement of God's Spirit within us. Oh, by the way, the reason it's called the Wild Goose Ministries Project is because there's an ancient Celtic belief that the Holy Spirit was a wild goose. But how do we enter into this season then? Especially if we're not always able to be in church. Especially if there are precautions and things we have to do, or even if the illness of some kind or another befalls us so that it's not safe for us to be here. The fact that we want to have everyone here possible, but yet we're limited to seating. And that may be for a while yet. Let us not succumb to the darkness of this pandemic, the stresses, the fears, the worries, and the concerns that it brings, right as many of those might even be. But let us enter into the light of what this season can be. Not simply because we lit a candle and will continue to light the Advent wreath to grow brighter, but to let that light remind us of the deeper reality. Christ's light is in our midst already. The movement of the Spirit is already within us. How do we welcome it into our lives? And how can we do it together? And so it is, we offer an opportunity to enter into deeper prayer, to enter into a fuller reflection, to be drawn deeper into the reality by music that could inspire us. And so that we can journey together through Advent to embrace the coming of Christ at Christmas more fully into our lives.